Hi. Welcome
Hello.
to another Band Batch stream. James is joining us in a few minutes, but he'll just hop on when he's ready. Um, hey, Justin. Hey, Christina.
Hey, Xanthe.
Um, Today we're going to be talking about Andor Episode 8, the music and sound of it. And wow, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about, especially like synthesizer wise. I mean, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
we've synthesizers are very present throughout the whole series for sure, but we got some. It just keeps becoming. Keeps becoming like a bigger and bigger part. I feel. Um,
Yeah, I agree. The scores are
I
getting a
agree
lot
as
more
well.
electronic.
and
It's solidifying as like a thematic thing almost, I think.
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, for sure. And I just want to direct people toward Nicholas Bertel did a little interview yesterday with I think like several Star Wars podcasters kind of co did it. And I know Triad of the Force was one of them. I know I can't remember the other. Talking Bay 94 was one of them, and they each got to ask. Like it wasn't like an interview, like where it was like back and forth. It was more like each person got to ask one question, and so it did
Hmm.
kind of. He did. Nicholas Bertel did get to share like a little bit about stuff. So yeah, if you look up, Nicholas Bertel interview Andor, you should see multiple channels have posted it from the same interview from their own channel, and yeah, that that will. I watched it, so I'll be able to bring up some specific things if they
Oh,
come up.
cool.
Yeah,
Awesome. I hadn't heard about that yet.
yeah. So hey, Jonah, good to see you. Okay, so we actually have like a little bit of a question, or we came prepared to talk about synth stuff, or
Mm-hmm.
we know that a little bit of a more detailed discussion is probably in order because we keep referring to things like detuned synths and like warbly synths. And while I think those are accurate descriptions in many cases, I guess it is probably helpful to distinguish between the different kinds of synth sounds and what sort of makes those different qualities
Hmm.
sound like that. And so Justin is our resident expert. So he'll be able to do some demonstrations and stuff today. But
Oh yeah.
right off the bat, like, what were your all what were your feelings about the music and sound design of this episode? Like, there was a lot of sound design too. So
I think that the sound design and then I think there's really three components to what we're hearing, other than the speaking that's going on, which is the really, really prominent sound design, the synth sounds, which are then kind of similar to the sound design sometimes, and then the orchestral sound, which then often sneaks in a way that it really blends in with the synths and then becomes orchestral. So we have a lot of moments where we fade between these three segments, or these three vibes of
totally.
and particularly I would just kind of like note just like the factory sounds, right? So
Yeah.
Oh
there's
yeah.
the strong factory sounds, and then some synthy stuff will start to come in, but there'll be like a little bit of a string section thing very slightly coming in, and then that will turn into a full orchestral melodic situation. So yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
my overall take on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Um, I agree with you, Christina. I feel like I like that you pointed out these three kind of distinct layers, and I feel like they're all very aware of each other. They're not made. I mean, maybe they're made separately in a sense, like separate thoughts, separate intentions, but they're all very aware because many times I feel like the score and the sound design are just like so in sync with each other. Not, and I don't mean like tempo wise all the time. Sometimes we've gotten a couple examples in other episodes where like the Xanthe, where are you going? Xanthe, where'd you go?
I'm trying to adjust the brightness so it's less bright, you know.
Oh.
Don't worry, just because we're dark, or I'm, yeah, yes, well, sorry, Justin.
No, no, no. It's just Xanthe started
Your
spinning
stars,
away. It's
yeah, I
like,
mean,
where'd
I
you
just feel
go?
like I'm in that prison.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want to feel like
No,
that.
yeah.
No.
I feel, yeah. I just feel, I feel like the everything's so aware of each other. All the layers of production. It's pretty cool.
I like the
Yeah.
word aware. That's great. Uh,
And one of the things that Nicholas Bertel actually did say in that, in that interview was that they did work pretty intentionally to find a ways to make the score work with the sound design, but not just in a way to like match it, because he said that sometimes like they'd had to make decisions like, okay, should we try to match the tempo of like the alarm? And
Mm-hmm.
then
mhm.
sort of he was saying like, should the, there were parts where it was clear that like he didn't, he actually said they, like he said we a lot during the interview, and I thought that was very revealing, because it showed how much of a
Mm.
collaboration the score was between
Mm-hmm.
he and with what's his name, Tony Gilroy. That's right. Wow. Like he kept saying like we made this sound, we made this. It was like very much a group effort, and yeah, there were some times where it was like inappropriate for the score. Is that buzz coming from me? Does anyone else hear a
But
buzz? Yeah.
it's in the distance somewhere. It feels. Oh, it got stronger. Now I hear actual grounded electricity.
I don't hear
Yeah,
any of
that's
us.
like a.
Yeah, it's like
It's the sound of like a cable that's partially plugged in.
yeah. There, it's gone. It's gone. Wait, did anyone do anything?
Yeah, I just muted myself. Is it me?
Oh, oh.
Oh.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, well, anyway, Nicholas Bertel said that like sometimes he like didn't want the music to be aware of the sound, like even though it was sort of like obvious that the music is playing off of the sound, that it couldn't be like the music was following the tempo of the sound design, because
Hmm.
yeah, and I think that makes sense because I mean the score is supposed to be not diegetic, so yeah. And then he did talk about like a little bit about the Aldani scene, and just moments where the blend was more uh, where he approached it more separate related, but ultimately
Mm-hmm.
separate and not aware of the sound, and sometimes kind of crafting it to be more placed, like like because the Aldani scene, like the eye had so much going
Mm-hmm.
on with it, like that had to be a little bit more intentional, it seemed. So yeah, the sound is coming
Yeah,
back.
what I love to do is like repeat what you said in like a different way. That's my favorite strategy. Uh, but yeah, what I heard from that sounds like basically there were a few modes that he used, and I think that's what the three things that I was trying to refer to are, like the word mode. Like now we're in music is aware of sound design mode,
Mm-hmm.
or now we're in fully orchestral
We're still hearing
mode.
the by the way, Justin.
I don't know what to do.
It even surged just now.
Yeah, it's surging now. Does everyone
Speaking of surging,
does everyone
that's
in the
like
chat hear
that
that?
was so much.
Speaking of surging, oh right, their sprint session in the prison.
Yes, yes, and also just that like I like love the
Mm.
of the that was like a nice theme
Like when they were working on
throughout.
like when they were working on building that whatever it is that they're building.
Yeah, well, it kept coming in, and I'm gonna text to you. I took a screenshot in case you and I should have sent it to you beforehand. But I just took a screenshot of the definition of ostinato,
Oh, okay, cool.
Because I feel like I'm going to use that word a lot because I feel like there was basically this synth ostinato that was huge theme throughout the whole episode, and it kind of like set the pacing and the tone for uh, I like that.
Totally, totally.
Uh, yeah, it set the pacing and the tone for how we feel
Okay.
during this whole episode, I think. How nervous we are.
Oh, yes. Okay. Ostinato, short melodic phrase repeated throughout a composition, sometimes slightly varied or transposed to a different pitch. A rhythmic ostinato is a short, constantly repeated rhythmic pattern, and I think that's like the main point. Is it's a short, constantly repeated pattern, and I mean we get it a lot in Andor. Like I just think I don't know. I don't, no. Whatever. You know, like there's kind of that stuff that can that
Yeah.
made no sense. Um, yeah, but I think of dee 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 dee, and then on top of that, that makes no sense. But on top of that, then we can hear like those more melodic themes that have slower notes, like dee 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 dee. And we did get a moment like that, like when we were approaching that Narkina 5, which looked like, what were those whirlpools?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Like that was
That's
that was
true. And in the prison, it looked like it was raining. There was
oh.
like that shot. So actually that's like one of my Oh, actually, this is a perfect example of precisely what we're talking about is um there's a really nice moment when all of the prisoners are in line and they are, I don't know, like going to eat or something, or they're leaving the factories, going to their bed chambers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
and there's that shot where Cassian looks out and he sees the guy Taga, I think, in his group sign languaging to someone. And then we look
Uh-huh.
out and we see the person to whom he's signing, and then we get a perspective of all of the different people. But the sound design is really, really important there because they actually specifically change the the what we're hearing to the sound of rain right there. And uh, I don't hear it actually.
Christina, this one's for you. Oh, you don't hear it?
No, I don't hear this. Oh, Squid Game.
Are you serious? Maybe it's coming. Is it coming from me now? Because I hear it really loud. Anyway,
I might hear.
okay. It's a little bit lower now, but it's still. Chat, let us know if you hear the. Like it could be me. It could be me. I don't know how. Well, it just. What the hell? Okay.
Such is the life of the
This episode is really
Did it just-
emotional.
Did
It
it
did
just
not.
go away?
No.
Okay.
Oh, now it did. Oh, that was me. Oh my God. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm so sorry. Oh, that's what happens when you have a dynamic and a condenser mic using phantom power at the same time. Bad news. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That was, yeah. Anyway, like how we were blaming it on Justin. So James
Thanks,
is
y'all.
here, and we're putting it, everyone, that was me. That was all me. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. So Squid Game. This is what Christina was saying yesterday. Hey James, I haven't seen Squid Game. I only seen one episode, so I haven't, and I don't remember it. But
Oh, it's fantastic.
so does it remind you
It's
of Squid
good.
Game?
This episode a little bit, yeah. It did. It reminded me a lot of Squid Game, and it reminded me of. I know everyone's drawing comparisons to George Lucas's early film THX 1138,
For sure.
but it really, like, it definitely threw those kinds of vibes at me as well.
Yeah. There. I mean, it's been said all over Twitter and everything. People are posting like comparisons, shot comparisons to THX 1138. And yeah.
Well,
Hey,
well,
James.
it's interesting.
Go
Hi,
ahead. Just
James.
finish your
I
thought.
was gonna say what. What I was gonna say is I find that interesting that we have a lot of these comparisons of shots, um, but what really struck me about it too was the comparison in my mind about the sound design, because pe- people who have if you've seen THX 1138, Walter
Merch.
Marsh who wrote the movie with George Lucas, did almost all the sound editing for the film itself, and really, really experimented with the sound design in ways that hadn't really been utilized yet. There's just so much storytelling in just the sound design alone. And I feel like in this episode, they really, really, really did that. One of my favorite things is since we're talking about the factory, um, all the buzz tones and bell tones that meant different things to everybody. There was on program had this droning bell in the background, do 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 do. There was this little I think I wrote a little siren for the announcement, this whoop 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 kind of thing, and this deep dark modulated voice would come in, to sound scarier than it really was, kind of. I just imagined it was the guy that the smaller guy with the little microphone who was saying you're all late
10
right
seconds
before,
to.
and he's that he was the one making those announcements. There was a sound for the floor. There was that
Oh, yeah, the
if this
floor.
comes in,
Ugh.
there's what was it, the big buzzer that would come on for them to work. They even referenced it too. It's at the sound of the tone, get back to work, so it's like sonic psychological warfare on
Right.
these
And the sound has
abuse
meaning
on
in
these.
universe.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Exactly.
Yeah, lots of torturous sounds in the episode. There was like a lot of zap rod zapping,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that.
And when.
And then, of course, just a fully playground of machines and air
Yeah, I saw
pumps
someone
and
say
screws and things
they
like
should make
that, which
an
is so
Andor
cool.
ASMR
Yeah.
something. Yeah. So, James, hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
Vmos, that was his name. Oops, that was his name. Vmos, who jumped. Is that what they said? Or he jumped or
Oh.
something.
Mm.
And that was definitely a sound. I mean, they knew it was happening by the
Oh,
sound.
oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It sounded like, God, I wrote it down. It was sounds like lasers and slicing, but you didn't see any lacerations in the distance on the body or any blood or anything. But it really sounded like you got sliced by something.
Yeah, he railed
Yeah.
it, is
And
what they
then
said.
railed it. Yeah. It was very disconcerting then that they were all complaining about how it was going to smell all night. I felt
Yeah.
like that was
Yeah.
a wise way for them to discuss it, because then it's left up to us. Well, oh well, why would it smell? What would it smell like?
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I'm going to state those things clearly, but yeah, sure it's.
Yeah, that whole scene, the way that through the sound everything played out. First it was what we heard is heavy breathing, and then we heard the buzz of when he stepped, but we didn't see it. We just heard it, and then the chatter, the bits of conversation that they chose to highlight with, you know, we'll be smelling him all night, and then there's Vmos. They said his name. By the way, his name is he's behind the green glass door, and then someone's he was slipping, you could see it, and then someone's I don't care, man. You rail here at night. I got no sympathy. And then they're immediately thinking about we're gonna be shorthanded. You know, just worried about how that will impact their work, and I think that just says so much. And then Kino, of course, is immediately wants to keep everyone under control. He's a prisoner too, but he's taken on the lead prisoner role, so he immediately wants to get everyone, settled. The Imperials officers don't even need to physically be there. the psychologically they already have their people in the places to keep order. Like their system is so, I don't know, it's so efficient. And then just the announcers like level 5 grid disruption, 10 seconds to get to your sleeping platforms, and then it's done. Like how much order they have, like how much control.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I skipped that part because I was scared. Yeah, it's not a fun part to watch multiple times, that's for sure.
It really is cool. I guess one of the big themes in Andor is different views of the Empire than we've seen before. And this one is interesting, like an Empire factory prison that self-regulates and that everyone is totally motivated to be in the machine
Yeah.
without. And the other thing about the Empire, I think, is this kind of like unwavering, I don't want to say loyalty, but unwavering motivation to keep working really hard for the Empire, uh, which the prisoners all have. And but it's 100% because they either want to taste food if they've done well, or not be the ones who get shocked uh,
Yeah.
at the end of the
What
day.
are they what are they making? What are the items that they are making every day? Um, I have
You have a
does
theory?
anyone know?
I have no
Well, I have a
idea.
theory about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I
just
have
have
guesses,
theories, but
but
yeah.
yeah.
I have a strange theory that there's a term for this, but I feel like, or I feel like it's like a fool's errand. What they're doing, I feel like they're making useless items that are only there for their punishment. Like I feel like what they're creating isn't an
Oh.
actual. I think it's kind of like they all think that they're making something every day, but they're gonna find out that it's this whole thing was just like for their own punishment. Because I was thinking in terms of in universe, like why does the Empire need like living things to do what they're doing? Like they have automated we saw the droid factory from like episode 2
Mm-hmm.
where that entire thing operated remotely, and they were like putting droids together, right? So like whatever they're showing doesn't seem complicated enough within the Star Wars universe that would require living things to put them together on a massive scale. In fact, it seems like it's more expensive. So it almost feels like the whole thing is like some weird imperial like psychological torture,
Yeah.
But that's just like a out there theory. Because I was
That's
in the back of my
dark.
mind, I was thinking, I was like, why do they need? And the other thing is like, there's only humans in this prison too. There's no aliens in this prison, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting too.
And only ostensibly men.
That's right. Yeah. So
Labor worthy.
Right, labor worthy.
Described them as.
labor worthy, they said,
Um,
right? So
No, that's an interesting take on it. I got the sense of like this is. I always had the question: how the heck did they, for example, build the Death Star, or build like a Star Destroyer? Those things are miles long and require like how long? So this kind of answered to me like, oh, this is how they got everything done so fast.
That's
That's
what
They
I was
just
thinking too.
captured
okay.
people
That's a more
and put
practical
them to
answer
work.
to that question.
Well, but then it's interesting too that you brought up this like kind of human, like yeah, they have the droids, they have these things. I think that just kind of shows the cruelty of the Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could, but
And it's like they're giving out these sentences so liberally, like they're just like ensuring captive work. So yeah, that's actually a pretty good point in that these are likely useful items because, like you said, like how do they how they build
Yeah,
an endless fleet of Star Destroyers on a secret secret Sith moon somewhere that all have like
this is
planet destroying lasers on
this is-
them, right?
This is how it happens.
Maybe J.J.
Exactly.
Abrams finally gets his answer.
But yeah, and also remember, like this Empire. Out for all sorts of reasons
losing
to
you,
kind of
Justin.
go back to like using humans. I don't know. Oh,
Justin, you got a little bit droidy. James, you can turn your gain up a little bit.
Oh,
Well,
poor Justin.
while Justin's glitching,
Justin is
um,
pixelated.
y'all were talking about Squid Game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is apt. I think it's coincidental in some ways. Because if I'm not mistaken, aren't the production timelines for both of those shows during a pretty similar time?
Perhaps.
I don't think Andor, you know what I mean? Like, weren't they shooting this for like the last like 4 years or something? Like, which would have been when Squid Game? Because I think I've heard some people thinking that like that this show was like influenced by Squid, or this particular scene was influenced, but they like wrote this and this whole thing like a while ago. So I think that's probably coincidental, right?
Am I back?
But regardless, I think it's apt comparison. And then y'all were talking about the sound design.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of that is that bodied, like disembodied voice over the announcement.
Totally.
And if I'm not mistaken, like Justin and Xtina, you said that you've seen it. You haven't seen it though yet, Xanthe, right? Squid Game?
No.
Right. There is like that voice of the announcer is pretty similar, right? It's like this like dark, like deep, distorted, or maybe I'm thinking of like the main villain, masked villain sounds like that. Somebody's voice in Squid Game sounds like that voice.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's
Like,
the main. Like, I feel like it's that main person, who's ever making
don't
the
they? And
announcements.
isn't
Every
it
time
over
they
the
make
announcements like
that.
Yeah. I think it's like that's. I think that if that wasn't a part of this whole scene, that I don't know if the Squid Game comparisons would have been so widespread, because I think that's a defining feature, like the sound of that voice pumping in through that you never get to see who's behind that voice. Is a powerful. It sets an environment within, like, you just like when they bring them down in the elevator and then they leave, and then all the prisoners are by themselves,
Yeah, and as another parallel to Squid Game there is that, well, then the only job that the actual Imperial officers have is to be entertained by what's going on. It seemed like they completely seem like kids in candy shops. And they're wearing their like fancy Nike tennis shoes. I thought those the tennis shoes of the guards. I was just like, oh wow, like we've got
so silly,
some.
That was a
Well,
choice.
Until you
they're
realize
rubber-
what they're for. Yeah.
Where they're rubber protective
Yeah.
boots, right? That's what they are.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I think
It's
I don't think it's a coincidence, or not a coincidence. I don't think it's a irrelevant that we got to see where they keep them all.
Yeah.
Like, we got to see that rack of all the boots. Like, I think the show is great, and showing these little nitpicky details are fun, but I don't think that's like for no reason. I think like that's going to be the escape route, is going to be like they're going to somehow, I think Andor or whoever, they're going to raid that boot. And they showed us that weird scene that was like there was like a miscommunication between like who was supposed to be on what shift, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was a
That was-
curious scene.
For a
That was a
second there,
curious scene.
I thought it was gonna be like there was a breakout all along, like kind of like this was another undercover ops, and we're breaking out Andor immediately. But I'm kind of happy that didn't happen at the same time.
I think it's I think it's some foreshadowing. It could, or like that's what my gut tells me. It's like some foreshadowing that like there's gonna be some type of, they have common mix-ups like this, and that groups are gonna be able to take advantage of that. Because that seemed like a very like, I was watching that scene when it first happened, and I was like, and they really show us like the boring details of the administrative, process of the Imperial oppression machine. I was like, it was such a like what's a word, like just real scene, like wait, you were supposed to be doing, like they're like, don't you know that deliveries take priority? You're like, why do they write this scene? It's just like so banal, right? Like, but I think it's for a purpose. I think a similar type of miscommunication might happen in future episodes that might aid our heroes in escaping this hellish prison. So
Yeah.
Totally. And
Chekhov's
when you
shoe
mentioned
rack.
that, James.
yeah, Chekhov's
Yeah.
Chekhov's administrative miscommunication.
I love that. And it just occurred to me too, like that the prisoners work so well together. They're amazing, super efficient teams that know how to
Yes.
communicate about all sorts of things really
Right.
fast. So that's going to really aid them when they escape and take
Right.
over the prison and everyone. It ends happily, I'm sure.
Maybe they'll be offered
Oh,
jobs
oh my God! I just got. Oh my God! I
with
just
the
got another
Empire.
theory. I just got
Okay,
another
what is it,
theory.
What is it?
James?
What is it?
Mothma is trying to rally all these people to oppose these prison sentences and like this overreach, right? Like, and the prison sentences are like part of the
Mm-hmm.
overreach, right? What if they like retaliate against her doing that and they like double the prison sentences again, and that leads to like a total prison uprising?
Yeah, if
Because
Kino's sentence goes from like 249 to like 1,000, he's gonna.
He's gonna be
I'm
pissed.
not really sure what's gonna. Yeah, he's gonna rally in a different way. Yeah.
Maybe. I
right,
don't know though, because I don't know at what point. It's hard to say at what point someone rallies against the machine rather than just keeps trying to work with it, you know? Because Kino
yeah,
right now is working with it. Like that seems like
yeah,
his easiest ticket is to just work with it.
yeah,
And they find it disgraceful that people even slaughtered the garrison on Aldani. Like they're not happy with the rebels because they're facing they're being punished for what
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
the
Well,
rebels did.
and that was, as we see in this episode, entirely part of the plan, as Luthen alludes to in his conversation
Mm-hmm.
in Saw with Saw, saying like basically this oppression is the point of what they're trying to do. They're trying to get the Empire to bring the hammer down harder, so that they can get more opposition to the Empire, like in a quicker
For
way.
sure. But there will always be some people, and there are people already, I'm sure, in the prison, like the ones communicating, as Matthew says. My theory is that the others are already planning, that others, some others are
Mm-hmm.
just already planning a prison breakout. And that sounds plausible to me. But what I'm saying, like, everyone's line is different where the Empire doubles down on their sentence and they can maybe cross that line and be like, screw the Empire, or they can be mad at the people who provoked the Empire. And everyone kind of switches at a different place. And some people honestly go very far in their lives, always blaming the people who provoked the system, that
Mm-hmm.
rather than being mad at the system. And so,
Totally. And that's the prescribed narrative that they're given. They're supposed to be angry at the people who provoked the Empire.
yeah,
That's what the Empire wants.
yeah,
That's one of the subjugation methods
Right.
that it
totally,
uses.
totally. Um,
Yeah, they definitely are. I think I agree that the prisoners must be planning to break out on some sort of multi-level in some multi-level way because of that really long scene where Andor is just watching them communicate with sign language or with sign symbols through the different levels. Um,
yeah, but
and that same character was making a point to ask Cassian what's going on the outside,
yeah,
and really making a point to continue that conversation and get as much out of him as he could. That he must be, and I think that guy's name was Taga. I think it was the same guy who was doing the signing and who was doing that. I think he's going to be a character
Yeah,
moving forward.
lots of little things like that in this episode that weren't like addressed later or resolved, which leads me to believe there's like lots of little things more afoot here.
yeah, the Public Order Resentencing Directive. And then they're like, he's never heard of it. No, Jembach said that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, very interesting. And I bet the people who have been there shortest will probably know more. I mean, one major thing when you're in prison is being cut off from the news of the outside world. So I think I really like that they showed like that aspect of it. Like they're kind of just hungry for information on the outside. And Andor is interesting to them because he's been on the outside so recently.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're hoping for some juice. But anyway, so the opening of Andor, the title sequence. Obviously, it's different every episode, but this
Yeah.
one was
Mm-hmm.
so warbly and can't play it on the stream. But if people go to the episode and go to the 2-minute mark, that's when that starts. After the like recap and the Disney Plus logo. So if you want to refresh, so you know what we're about to talk about, then yeah, just listen to the 2 minute about around the 2 minute mark of episode 8. But yeah, what's going on in there? We have many layers, many layers.
Yeah, I mean, on the basis we get, of course, the Andor theme itself. It's doing the dun 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 dun, dun which we're all completely familiar with at this point. But it's this like synth with a delay, almost an echo kind of thing, and it gets that rising, warbly, the thing that we keep calling the warble tone thing. That I don't know if that's coming out at all. That coming in and all?
It is, but I'm not sure that you're. I think the warble. If you could make the warble demonstration more
Oh yeah.
obvious,
Well,
because
How
then we
about
can
this?
talk about because then we should talk about the difference between warbly
Yeah.
and detuned.
How about this? Do we hear that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, what we mean by this kind of warbly aspect that kind of like is heard throughout the score in so many in so many, almost everywhere, it seems like, is this slight, subtle, or not so subtle tuning or retuning of an instrument. So, for example, if I were to play just a straight note, it just goes forever, right? There's no motion to this note. I can change notes, right? But the notes themselves don't move after I play them. By adding a shape, and a speed, we can start moving around this tone. So it's no longer like a steady, straight thing. So what they're doing is just very slightly moving that pitch or that note up and down with this kind of smooth circular shape, which we would usually just call a sine wave, a sine shape, for those that remember geometry. And that just gives everything this sense of unease, you know? This like this pulling, this breathing, this like unsteady feeling in a way, especially once we get like a bunch of notes together. It just adds so much really interesting layers to it. And it's not just the synths that are doing it. Sometimes they'll like apply it, I feel like, to like a larger layer of the score, if not like almost all the notes, like almost like they're like speeding up a record and slowing down a record or a tape cassette. So you're getting that kind of that feeling for the entire sound coming at you, not just like a few instruments. We would just call this pitch modulation in synthesizer world. In acoustic world, you could call it very, very slow vibrato. For any wind instrument players or string players out there. So Xanthe. Exactly.
Okay. Listening exercise for everyone. Okay. So go to the beginning. Go to that 2 minute mark of Andor episode 8, and maybe we can talk about each of the sounds that come in order. I really wish I could play it, but I can't. So if if you're listening to this, if you're watching this live or you're watching the replay, go to about the 2-minute mark of Andor episode 8, so that we can hear the opening theme. Right. Okay. So let's just put this right here, right in Christina's window. Okay. So the very first thing, I'm listening to it right now. Okay, so before that even comes in, I hear 2 sounds that come in before that. One of them is like a kind of a low drone, except like an octave lower.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also hear the kind of the pulse. Dum, 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 which is, the percussive thing. Does everyone hear those things?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you hear that I'm missing? Does everyone in chat hear those things?
I'm not sure where you are yet.
Oh. Okay.
But nobody's brought up the drums, y'all.
Yeah, there's the big drums at the end.
There's drums,
Oh, right.
and they're doing something very different than we've basically heard.
I'm at literally just before even the dee comes in.
So maybe before the drums come in, yeah.
And before even the synth lead comes in, just like literally the first 2 seconds of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we're not there yet. Okay. So.
Sounds like there's like
the drums come in pretty early. You can hear them. They're just very low in the mix, and it's more just the accents.
Yeah. Okay.
Percussive.
Then that's what I was kind of mentioning with the. It's like slightly pitched, right? It's pitched, but it's also.
No.
Okay, maybe there's a different one. But do you
No,
hear?
so
Do you hear what I'm talking about? And
I hear what
Yeah.
you're talking about. Yeah,
What is
it's
that?
like almost
Right?
like a
tell you
metal
where the drums come in,
block of
ready?
some kind.
Alright.
I'll tell you right.
Okay.
It's at like 2. Ready? Like 2:15 is where.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna-
okay, I'm not there yet. Wait,
Yeah, and the drums do totally.
I guess
come
I'm
in
going
with
very
kind of
slowly. So there's the. That comes in before the drums, right?
Mhm.
And then we have.
No, it comes in right with the drums.
Oh.
The drums are
Oh, no,
sneaky.
that-
They're there in the background.
We're
And then
talking
they
about
become more
we're talking
forward.
about a slightly different sound. So basically,
Okay.
so we have. Hold on, it's like I'm like listening to Disney Plus and also like having a conversation at the same time. One second. Okay. So 207. Yep. And then basically like the next phrase,
Oh, totally.
you can hear it very slightly. It's like so low in the mix.
Yeah,
It's almost like it almost feels like it's almost like it's in the DAW and they're just automating the volume up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
And Jeannie, I'm totally with you. Like the first few seconds remind me of the bells on Ferrex. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like, especially towards the end, you start getting the
Yeah,
tongue.
it's like that hammer sound.
Tongue, that hammer sound with these drums doing this dum dum ba dum dum this
Yeah, we have some polyrhythms going on. We have
Yeah.
polyrhythms happening.
we have basically dun digga digga dun digga digga dun digga digga dun digga digga, right against the kind of the straight eighth note feel of some of the. It's kind of we haven't had that in this show very much, which is very cool.
And then when the comes in, okay, this is what I'm hearing, and tell me if you hear something different. I'm hearing that those aren't warbly in the way. I hear that they're in the decay. I'm hearing like a big decay on them. I'm hearing it goes down and up, but like each note has its own arc. It's not like dee dee dee. You know what I mean? It's like dee. But Justin, feel free to tell me if you hear something different, or anyone.
But it sounds like to me, I hear what you're saying, but it sounds like to me is that, okay, the only way I can explain this is in like synthesizer talk.
That's
I'm
okay.
trying to think of like another way to do it. So like when I was mentioning the shape of the
Yeah.
tone, right? So depending on the synth you have or whatever your settings and things like that, you can set that shape to reset itself every note. So every time I hit a note, it's going to start at part one of that shape, the beginning of the shape, every single time. And it'll give it a tone, will get this like, down, down, every single time kind of a thing. Where instead it's almost like it's a free running shape in the background that doesn't restart. It just runs by itself in the background so that you're getting this da, 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 da. It's like it's just every note just kind of it kind of taps into that shape during the shape's time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The the low frequency oscillator is what it's called, a LFO. The LFO is running very slowly and freely in the background while affecting this pitch, so it doesn't restart itself every time. And not only that, I feel like he's doing it very slightly to the whole score. Like he's taken the pitch of like everything, or if not like the reverb in the background, and just making that move. Because when you get to the very end of the beginning, the tail of all the sound is also doing the raising and lowering. Listen to that.
Wait, can you say that again? The last part, the tail part.
The tail of the sound. So like as the sound fades out at the very end of this opening, like as we transition the scene, like the reverb, the tail, the hanging sound is also doing this thing. So that's what it feels like to me. It's like I said, it's almost like he like recorded it all and like put it on a record and was just like tuning it up and down and like re-recording it in almost, you know. So it like affects everything rather than just one or two instruments.
Yeah. In fact, Commander Taco on Discord said this, and he was the one who really encouraged more of a synth deep dive. Okay, he said, he said he thinks one of the sounds like a record spinning unevenly, or perhaps the tapes are a little stretched. And then the other sounds like a synth raising or lowering pitch a little bit. So basically, okay, low frequency oscillator. Okay, do you mean sort of like, okay, let me try to, I'm going to share my iPad so I can draw something. So I can draw what I'm thinking about. Let's see, how do I get that? Here we go. Okay. Okay.
Hey.
So you mean like, okay, so there's like music happening here. It's like whatever. It's like these are the notes, these are the notes, these are the notes, etc. Yay. And more notes. This is the actual score. I'm just trying to fill out the line so we could draw like a big thing. And so these are the notes, and these are the intended notes, or like even these are the notes being played. And then you're saying like
those are the pitches.
Yeah, these are the exact pitches from the Andor opening. And so what you're talking about is like there is a separate like parameter that is being like, or it's a separate, okay, it's a low frequency oscillator, so it is something that is like making some kind of a wave, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Except it's
Just like
happening because what is happening here if we're looking at the wave, like, you know, there's a lot of stuff like this happening here, and it's probably comprised of, like, it's probably not just like this, right? It's probably like that or something. And then the more you can add different oscillators, like add different pitch generators, basically sound generators, oscillator, right? Sound generator. You can add a different sound generator and make it, are you saying it's at a very low frequency, but is it also oscillating really slowly? So it kind of, okay,
Yeah.
waves are additive, right? So if this is happening and you're playing another sound that goes like this, what happens
It's like
in,
slowly.
no, please.
Yeah, it's like slowly affecting everything on top of it. Yeah, waves can
Exactly.
be additive, or waves can be multiplied and
Yeah.
divided against and
So-
stuff like that.
So like the things that happen like in, like there are key points where like, depending on where this oscillator or where this wave being generated by an oscillator is in its wave, whatever, it's going to make the what's happening here, you know, the congruence of whatever pitches are happening at this time, it's going to affect, like, you know, because the waves that are kind of mixing together like this are going to sound different than when the waves are like, there's a crest here and there's like a trough down there at the same time. And that kind of is that right? Did I just
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no, exactly. It's like it's a wave that it's a wave that we can't hear, but it's affecting things that we can hear. Just like
Right.
when you were like using your violin to demonstrate the vibrato. Think about your bow is the tone, and your finger is that shape. Is that slow moving shape kind of thing. So as you play, whatever you're playing with your bow, if you're just slowly moving your finger freely like that, that's exactly what's going on. It's just slightly lowering and raising the pitch at a different like time frame than how the music is going.
It's like you're sitting in the middle of the ocean in a bathtub that's full of water, right? And you're making waves in your bathtub. That's like your regular synth oscillators, right? And then the LFO is like the ocean, right? That you're in, right? Like
Interesting. I can see that
Oh.
because depending on where you are, like you'll be like,
it's like you're making your own waves in your bathtub, but the ocean is affecting all the waves in that you're in, right? Is that a crazy analogy?
I mean, they're different kind of waves, but I think the general principle makes visceral sense to me. Where like depending on your own motion, like rides do this really well, right? Like there's your vehicle that you're in, but you might still be like going like this from like the last jerk, and then so
Right,
kind
right,
of
right.
like you're kind of like, yeah. Either Justin froze or just
I
being very silent.
Justin definitely froze.
Okay. Justin
Oh
froze.
yeah, Justin is totally frozen. I like to think of a kind of a visual metaphor for it that goes even beyond like thinking of the. I like that you mentioned ride, but it's almost like you're in like a ship or something that has one little viewport, and someone else is controlling that viewport, and they're going like this very slowly. So no matter what you're doing, you're still only able to see the viewport, like specifically what's outside of this viewport. And it's kind of a, the word controller comes to mind, like it's something that is controlling all the parameters of what you can see because you can only see what's out of this viewport. um but yeah, controlling, yeah, your entire perception is within that, and by your entire perception, that metaphor goes to the pitch and any other parameters that are being affected by the low frequency oscillator.
Yeah, so like if anyone's ever used noise canceling headphones, the way that they work is um, I'm going to put a visual up here because, like I said, like we're sorry for this like physics lesson, but
I mean, that's kind of what this thing
yeah, that's
requires.
sound. That's sound. You see like these parts where where the crest of the wave, it's not actually a crest because sound waves are transverse waves, not or but anyway, or are longitudinal waves, not anyway, but it's fine. Anyway, I'm not gonna. But this is fine for a representation right now. You can see the parts. So noise canceling headphones will take like there are microphones. When you wear noise canceling headphones, there are microphones on your headphones that actually hear what what the level of your environment is, and they kind of create like the opposite of that. Opposite is not the right term, but you know, and so the parts where it's really a high point, it's kind of matching up where there's a low point, it's and vice versa. And so you can actually like destructive versus like that is how the quote unquote like
Cancels it
noise
out.
cancellation happens, because how one wave is moving affects like the other waves it is moving at the same time. Yeah. Hi, Justin. Welcome back.
It's funny because that's forth in my.
Wait, what? You're
Breaking
roboting.
up again, buddy.
Justin. Aw.
Oh,
Aw.
Justin.
Anyway, the two waves, two waves, when they're out of phase, they subtract from one another as the positive pressures of one wave are acting against the negative pressures of another, and vice versa. Think of it as trying to add one and subtract one. You're left with zero. This is the basic physics behind noise cancellation. And then on a smaller level, like that kind of thing, that's kind of like why complex synthesized sounds, or just complex sounds like in real life, can like trick your ears, or can make you just hear all kinds of things. Like it can make you, it can change the amplitude. It can change like the volume level of what you're hearing, based on like the beating of those waves, like the interference. And I actually had a talking about detuned. I wanted to bring up like pianos, because a piano is like a good kind of analog way in real life that we hear, or people commonly hear detuning, and that's because so you don't. I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't need like a synthesizer to manually detune something to make something sound like it, like the tune, like the pitch is going like kind of warbly. If you've ever had a piano, like let us know in the chat if you've ever had either a grand piano or an upright piano, doesn't matter, but like not a digital piano, just like a analog piano.
With strings inside.
An acoustic piano. Yes. And when you hear it go out of tune, it's not just a pitch thing. Like it's not just that you hear the pitch crystal clear, but it's just out of tune. It's like it sounds messed up, right? Like it sounds like the note is like wider almost. It sounds like almost warbly, right? When you have an out of tune piano. And that's because pianos, when you hit a note, a lot of the times you are hearing more than one string at the same time. So when you tune a piano, like the very low end of the piano has just one string, but then then you move to two strings, and then you move to three strings. So yeah, you can see like each of these hammers, they're hitting three strings at the same time. So when you tune a piano, you have to have all those three strings in tune. And when one of those strings, when your piano gets like quote unquote gets out of tune, and like maybe one or two of those strings have slipped, it's essentially the same thing that we were demonstrating with the three different waves, kind of like conflicting with each other. Imagine hitting a piano note that is supposed to have that is supposed to be the sum of three strings in tune playing at the same time, but instead you're having three notes that are slightly out of tune, which means that which means that like one might have a higher frequency, so it might be like this, and the other one might have let me do that neater. One might have a frequency like this, and one might have one that is slightly smaller, and so then instead of being like in sync, you have like these parts where instead there is all of that widening and closing in, and that's like kind of the natural warbling of out of tune pianos. It's because there are multiple strings, multiple oscillators essentially being struck at the same time.
And it kind of, when you have two strings that are slightly out of tune,
Yep.
you can hear the waves interfering with one another.
Yeah.
In slight ways, and the closer they get being in tune, the less interference you hear, and the slower the waves appear. Right. So if I detune this even more, right? Like, let me go flat.
Yeah, you can hear like.
And now Now if I tune it, slows down, I tune a little bit more.
And what James means by slows down is he means the parts where there's beating.
Yes, exactly.
Like they become fewer and farther between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's actually in Indonesian gamelan music, there's typically when playing the metallophones in a Indonesian gamelan, there's typically half of the instruments are tuned to one set of frequencies, and the other half of the instruments are tuned slightly, very close to those frequencies, but slightly off, purposefully so, and the same distance off, so that this waving interference is actually part of the aesthetic of the ensemble. So imagine if you had half of an orchestra tuned to A440 and half of the orchestra tuned to A442, right? You would create that type of wave interference.
Theoretically, yes. Yes. Where's Justin? Hopefully he's okay. I'm sure he'll join when he.
I'm sure he's okay. I don't know if his internet is okay.
True.
Yeah.
True. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so synths, yes. And in that interview that I mentioned, Nicholas Patel did describe his synths as he did use the word like detuned specifically. Obviously, there are multiple synths, so which one he's talking about, it could have been many of them, but not all of them. But yes, definitely a big feature. So let us know if you have more questions so we can maybe get to that next time. Yeah, hope all of that kind of made sense.
I might have an interesting analogy for you with that. I don't know. It just came to me, but I keep a slinky on my desk.
The slinky is exactly the way. Yeah.
So the slinky is interesting because basically each one of these little things is you could in this kind of metaphor that we're making, each one of these little like these would be like the small waves that you see, and the low frequency oscillator would be like if in the background I was circling the slinky, and it's like they're doing the individual waves are doing what they do, but there's something bigger that's controlling all the parameters.
Okay, so here is
Does that make sense?
so yes, that makes sense. But okay, slinky, imagine putting the slinky on a flat surface and the way that sound waves go like this. Like if the slinky's on a flat surface, they go like this. You know? So instead of
Totally.
so the peaks and the troughs that we're seeing are actually compressions and rarefactions. Like so the parts where they get compressed together. But still your analogy still makes sense because sound waves are usually depicted like this anyway because it's just easier to visualize than seeing the compressions.
Yeah, what's really happening is
Yes.
it's very hard to do, but like I know
you could do it like that. You could do it like that. Yeah.
Like you start here, you really can't see it that well.
I can see it. I can see it.
And then I drop a piece.
Whoa. Whoa, that's trippy. And that's accurate because when you do like this to a slinky, it doesn't just go one way and just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
It goes a little bit back as well. So that's how sound waves are.
Yay.
Yay. Okay. So more music in Andor. Music and sound. Well, we got the ISB theme as we were going over Narkina 5 with the whirlpools. Like what an ominous even on rewatch, I think like that whole scene was even more scary to me because I knew like what was happening, how they get like strapped in and then like their shoes go in the middle and they basically go on this like thrill ride that, and I don't know. We have the dee, 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 and it keeps going dee, 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 dee. So yeah, it was like the ISB theme, but just kept going up a little bit longer than usual. And when when Dedra is with Cyril and leaving, I feel like leaving him, like leaving the room. I feel like we hear another version of the ISB, but it's just like this. Yeah.
I agree. I heard that. Yeah, it was nice. I sing along with it. That was one of my things that I did a few times.
Andor sing along.
Kind of mosquito-y, actually, when I did it just now, like that. It's like something kind of a
Yeah.
surveillance buzz.
Mosquito-y.
I just want to mention how good Cyril was looking. His suit looked quite nice. Cyril,
Yep.
in that episode, I just wanted to point out that his suit was really well put together, and his haircut was well trimmed.
Dress for the job you want,
Indeed.
not the job you have.
Indeed.
I did find that a surprising, not surprising, like wholeheartedly surprising, but I guess not exactly where I thought it would go. I thought
The costume
maybe
choice?
just the whole interaction with Daedra, and I for some reason thought that he would have success in that endeavor of trying to get involved with the Imperial process, and he did not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like he caught Daedra's interest quite a bit.
Yeah.
But and maybe in the back of her mind, something might happen where she might actually go and seek him out and actually seek out. Maybe this is planting the seed for that to actually happen. So maybe that, in many ways, kind of, I think this, I'm just gonna go off and do a tangent here. I think this highlights in many ways like why I love the writing on this show, and then why it's because a lot of things happen not the way that I would expect them to happen in episodic television, and especially episodic Star Wars television. Like I feel like if this was Book of Boba Fett, like they would have teamed up right now.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
instead it feels like they're just they take their time and let things unfold in such a more organic, interesting way. And so that's what I was surprised about. I was like, oh, they're not like immediately taking him in. They're like, thanks for the info, but get the hell out of here, you know?
Yeah.
Which makes it more purposeful. Like, but in like, you know, in or in Mando or Book of Boba Fett, like Boba Fett shows up, and in the episode he shows up, he's like, okay, Mando, I guess we're on the same team now, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, now we're like allies, because it's just like it's like simpler, pulpy television storytelling as opposed to this, which is like more, you know, drawn out and interesting.
That was one
yeah,
of my
that's all I
favorite
wanna say.
things because we were so wrong. We were like, they're gonna get
Well,
along.
I don't think
fast
we're
and-
wrong.
Well, yeah, we weren't wrong, but like
I think
again,
we're just wrong for now, right?
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think the first of all, Dedra. Holy shit, she's amazing. She's amazing. Also fascisty, but it was interesting to see her in this position because in her normal scenes, like we're seeing her kind of not being at the top, and here she is more of in a position of power than him, and so I feel like we saw like a different shade. Like she still had the same personality. The thing I love about her voice and speaking is like you can tell she's frowning just by listening to her. You can tell that her mouth isn't moving very much that way. The way
Right.
her vowels and sound and
Yeah.
everything. And here, like, she had no groveling to do at all. She had nothing to like. She wasn't tentative. Like, she was just very much like, I don't know, I'm the boss here, and yeah, not in it for Cyril's little like, please, I was a good officer or whatever he said. I was a good deputy
Yeah.
inspector. Like he gives his whole impassioned like, I solved a double murder in overnight or whatever. It was hard, but like whatever. And she's just like, get out. You won't be talking to me next time.
Well, I almost think I think Jeannie has a a good point. You know,
Mm.
that she is what Cyril thinks he is.
Ooh.
So you know how we thought they'd get along famously.
Yeah.
I still think that's possible.
Yeah. I think
I
it's
think
possible.
that in some ways, I think the two of them make kind of a good pair, because I think in their personalities, like Dedge pretty like domineering, and Cyril's like in some ways pretty submissive.
Subservient?
Yeah, yeah. So if anyone's ever seen the movie The Secretary, you might know what I'm talking about. So so anyway, I think those two could have like a nice. I ship them. Put it that way.
Oh. Oh. I do not.
What
What do you think, Christina?
I do see. Because he makes it very clear that he was a deputy inspector, not a lead inspector or anything. So yeah,
Oh.
Dedra wants to be in charge. Cyril wants to be like at a low rank,
He
yet
wants to be
contributing
ordered
quite a
around.
lot.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why I think they're kind of like a good vibe between those two. You know.
I mean, Cyril's probably the only person who would do anything that Dedra said, because no one in the Empire does anything that, or like she doesn't have any subordinates really, except for her own assistant, who's I don't even know if there's that guy who's I don't want to say he's her assistant, but they're always together, and
Yeah,
he's
with the
always like, "Hey,
reports.
we need to go up there right now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Here's like a reason why I don't think they're, if they team up, like I feel like it's a hard earned team up. And I feel like, and Christine and I were talking about this recently, where like the empire, the imperial structure just breeds competition. So like it's almost
Yeah.
like because they're kind of have hints of similarness, even though she's definitely more like advanced and even more put together, like more put together than he is. Um, it's almost like he, I feel like she would rather take his information and go and run with it her way. Like she doesn't need him. Like, or even though we know that they could probably make a powerful team to do what they both want. Like I believe that. I feel like the competition is probably getting in the way a bit. And we kind of got hints of that throughout the episode as well. Like when they find that thing that Cassian dropped, and they said that like I forgot what it's called. They put it on the desk, and
the Star
this
Path Navigator.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they said that like it hadn't been found before because the people like they didn't want to report that it was missing, and she started to say like this has been kind of a problem, but she was cut off, and I think what she was saying was like I think she was saying like it's been a problem like under reporting. Yeah, we didn't. Okay, it was stolen from the Steerguard Naval Yard last year. We don't know when it was taken because Steerguard was afraid to disclose its theft and thought they could hide its absence. My full report highlights the prevalence of this problem galaxy-wide. And that's kind of all we heard about that. But yeah, is the problem
Totally.
the fact that people are not willing to disclose the issues that they're having? Like the Imperials kind of don't want to let slip that they're having things slip through their fingers.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. And Wolf Yularen just acts completely uninterested. And I wonder, he acts like there could be a spec on the table more interesting than what Dedra's saying. And I wonder if that is kind of the Imperial strategy for higher ups to just act like what people are saying is useless and take the information, and then Wolf Yularen can go to the Emperor and then be like, oh, you know what? We've got this whole galaxy-wide problem of this. And then he gets to take the credit uh, for his subordinates' discoveries, similar to how Dedra could use Cyril. And Dedra is very skilled at, Cyril says all these things, and the only thing that she makes it seem like she cares about is when she realizes that Cyril never got to even see the report that he signed. And she's like, you didn't even see the report? Like, that's the only moment I think when she really kind of shows that she's interested. And that's just kind of a strategy of the Imperial Command, is to act super disinterested in things.
Yeah, and then to take
Uh,
credit and then to, do yeah, I mean, it's super toxic. Like they all do it, really. And I mean, it's shown also in the books where like they're constantly sort of trying to get on top of each other, like, the moths like are in competition and then just like wanting to have the best information. And I can totally see Yularen looked so bored. His looks so bored. And I can see how, he might be thinking, I'll let them work, whatever. I can eventually take this to the emperor or something. Like,
It's
Totally. That had me thinking, like, Wolf Yularen in Timothy Zahn's Thrawn books. I mean, he shows so much interest and friendship in Thrawn that
yeah.
I can't imagine how interesting Thrawn must then be to him
Or how useful.
if
Yeah.
yeah, if he's this bored. Like,
right.
if his norm is being like super bored all the time, super bland, like how does he, it's just very interesting that he then has this other side that we see sometimes,
Hmm.
Yeah.
that that Thrawn brings out.
You know, it's interesting. Doesn't it seem like in by the time of Rebels,
Hmm.
um, that the Empire is way more unified and actively trying to squash rebellion, like, and viewing the rebellion as an actual like antagonistic
Mm.
force than in this show. Like this show, it feels like they're all in denial about it, right? And this is seemingly not very far from Rebels in timeline. So it's interesting to see like how, and by the time of Empire, it's like they've got full, like they're just chasing down just Han and Leia and the droids, you know what I mean, and Chewie, like with a full Star Destroyer, like it's like Vader and his whole team, like all they care about is killing these, like the people that are aboard the Falcon, you know what I mean? Like think about how far away from a an approach that is to what we're seeing here. It's like, like, and obviously they had
Yeah.
just blown up the Death Star by Empire, so I guess that definitely changed quite a few things. But it's just really interesting to see that, in other Star Wars media that we've seen that takes place a little bit just a little bit later in the timeline, how the Empire has now turned the rebellion to a what do you call it? Enemy numero uno. And I think part of that is the Rebel Alliance specifically
Hmm.
becoming a legit militant force, and I'm excited to see that take place because
Yeah.
it's
Mon
and
Mothma.
it's kind of what a wonderful just what's the word, it's just like insightful, and I don't know, it's just sensical way to tell this story they've chosen, where it's like before the Rebel Alliance and before this threat was taken really seriously, we had like almost like across the board denial that this, and just laziness and administrative, negligence towards any type of rebel force. But it was really Mon Mothma and the rest of these folks that really made the Empire take them more seriously, and that explains why they're at such odds within the original trilogy and other things like Rebels. So,
Yeah, the
yeah.
times have changed and they will. Like, I also love how they're telling this story. And, with Saw as well, finally showing
Mm.
up in this episode, which I thought was a great,
So
I thought it was a really, I thought it was a really great moment or scene. I don't know. Also, like, Forrest Whitaker is such a good actor.
Forrest
And
Whitaker is just in a Disney Plus show, y'all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and Andy Serkis, by the way, have we even mentioned that guy's name on the stream
I didn't
today yet?
even know that was him.
Andy Serkis is in this show. Like,
I
what
know.
is happening with this show?
Afterward, like, people on, yeah.
Why is
People,
this show so good? I don't get it. It's like,
do you know who that
I'm
is,
really
Christina?
happy. I'm very
Mm-mm.
He's the voice of Snoke.
and Gollum
Oh.
from Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
Caesar from
I
Planet
may
of
have
the
noticed
Apes.
that. Yeah. without knowing who it was.
But
I
I've never
definitely-
seen
and
him.
Christina from Black Panther. What do you call it? What's his name? The bad the evil guy from South Africa. You remember? Like the guy that like helps but maybe Justin you can help.
thief,
Hi Justin.
Smuggler guy.
Hey, the smuggler guy. Yeah.
Cool.
What's
yeah,
what's
totally.
Andy Serkis's character in Black Panther, Justin?
Oh, Claw.
Claw.
What's his name?
Yeah.
Claw.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
he doesn't
I
get to
love
do a
Andy
whole lot of
Serkis.
live action stuff these days, but
Hey, Chocolate.
yeah, man.
Did you
Yeah.
did
Oh,
you all
thanks,
see Andy Serkis and go, "Hey, you're Snoke"? Wait a minute.
No, I didn't know that was him. And so, like, after I finished the episode on my Discord server, people were like making Snoke jokes, and I was just like, "Was Snoke in this?"
Snoke
I was
joke.
like, "Was Snoke in this episode?" I completely missed that.
Right. Right.
Because I've just never seen Andy Serkis in the flesh, and not doing like a Snoke voice or something like that. Yeah, I had no idea. But Saw Gerrera, like, I feel like this performance. First of all, I feel like this whole show is making Rogue One better for me, and I know I talk about this a lot, but like Saw's performance is like a really big reason too, because in Rogue One, I'm sort of like I just wasn't sure how I felt about Saw. Not like the fact that he is an extremist, because I like that about him, and for the story and for the rebellion. Like I like that someone exists like him, but like his characterization and just like Borgullet and like just the whole thing, like that was a lot. I remember that being like a lot for me to just take in at the time. And in Rebels, or what am I talking about? He first shows up in Clone Wars, right?
Clone Wars.
In
Yeah.
Clone Wars, he's so
Yeah.
young. So like
Yeah.
that,
Super young.
It's
like,
hard to see the connection
I
between
needed
those two
more.
characters
Yeah, I
at
needed
first,
something
right?
Yeah.
more. I needed something that is closer to that, but not quite. And I feel like Forrest Whitaker's performance in this episode, like, made me kind of understand. Like he he did a lot of the same mannerisms that like
Yeah.
older Saw does, but like
You gotta
toned
you gotta
down
play
and, like-
Battlefront. Chrysanthe.
oh
He's
okay.
in there. He's in there as a young. You do actually do a mission with
Oh,
Saw
okay.
Gerrera in that game.
Well then, but yeah, I think his performance was
Not
fantastic.
Battlefront. Sorry,
Jedi Fallen Order.
Fallen Order.
Okay, yeah, that makes
Fallen
more
Order.
sense given the time. Yeah, so his performance was like just a lot more nuanced. Like you could see flickers of the future. You could see flickers of the Saw he will
Yeah, I
keep
liked
growing
that.
into.
I liked kind of the beginning of the end for Saw there, kind of going a little crazy.
Yeah.
I'm curious when the Borgullet thing comes into his
Right.
life, and I'm curious when the breathing mask comes into his life. Like, at
When
what
Bo-
point
when
were they like,
Borgullet comes into his life, right?
like what happens there? Like,
I
is
ship-
that
I
the
also
like
ship,
the final straw for
Saw
him?
and Borgullet.
I saw someone
that again.
post like it seems like Saw has trouble trusting people, like telling whether people are lying or not. Wonder if we could figure out a way to.
If only there was a way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
it was. Saw's a really impressive character. I'm happy that he's having a role, because if you think about somebody who was in their prime in the Clone Wars and goes through those wars that everybody, they're just that was a really terrible war, and then he is then immediately and I just kind of, so I actually did some research on Saw last night. I watched a YouTube video of every scene that Saw is in that currently
Nice.
exists.
Nice.
And it's a little bit of a granted, I'm going to point out that it wasn't every scene that Saw is in, it was every shot that Saw is in. So I didn't
Oh.
get to hear any conversation of what other people said. It was just cuts of everything Saw does. But he
There's
was
no
tuckered
dialogue in
for a
it?
really long time. Yeah, no, you have to. It was just kind of absurd.
On-
Like they basically
Only
cut out
dialogue
the
when
other
it's Saw
person.
speaking on camera. You're saying,
Exactly.
right?
So
right. So
there
no,
were
none of the
entire
other
scenes-
cuts while he's speaking. I see.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So you had to fill in and kind of remember what was going on. But he did. it struck me that, when he was getting tortured, he was electrocuted for just like an insanely long time in some of the rebels sequences, I think. And so, and it was kind of made me think about what the toll that war takes on people. And Saw is almost like a physical representation of
Oh
the
yeah.
human toll of war, as like a one man.
Mm.
He's gone through so much, and now there's even his body. There's sort of not that much left. Uh, uh, in a way, similar to, I don't want to say
Anakin.
to Darth Vader, but yeah, to Anakin,
No,
and there is that type of.
I think that was a
Where it was did
purposeful
like the
parallel
same
with him.
person?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that by the time of Rogue One, where he's breathing into that respirator, I think he's supposed to be like a Vader-like figure in many ways.
Mm. Yeah.
That strange little bit where like there's like an orchestral like hit when his respirator goes back into its
Yes.
Yeah.
pouch. Remember that weird musical moment in Rogue One? It's kinda
Yeah.
like,
So remember when we were
Totally.
just talking about like when different oscillators in a synthesizer kind of
Yeah.
joining together to how multiple oscillators at the same time. That was going to be Justin's little new picture before he joined again.
Yay.
How multiple like waves happening at the same time. They kind of, when you take a cross section of what's happening at the same point, you kind of basically it impacts the final sound. And I feel like what we're kind of getting like a version of that, like with all these characters, because we have like all these different rebel or rebel adjacent characters, but they're all slightly detuned, right? Like they're not all none of that they're not on this all on the same wavelength. They're all slightly variations of how far they're willing to go, variations in like which tactics they're willing to use. We have like multiple levels, not even just two levels. Like we have like Cassian's level, which is like he believes in the cause, but it kind of is more for himself than consider Skeen. And then there's like Vel and Cinta, and then there's like Luthen, even between Luthen and Luthen's assistant. Forgot her name. Clea.
Kreia.
Clea.
Clea.
Clea, they have differences, and then Mon Mothma's like a totally different flavor of rebel, and then like Saw's like a completely different rebel flavor of rebel, and like we have all these like all these strings being hit at the same time, but they're kind of tuned to slightly different frequencies, right? So seeing like one character talk to another character, like one rebel character talk to another rebel character, like highlights the beating that they have between their two frequencies to really continue drawing this analogy out. Like when Luthen's talking to Mon Mothma, Luthen's like comes off as this like super radical. When Luthen talks to Clea, Clea's like, get your shit together. Like Clea's like running the shots. Like, and Luthen, we kind of see it, the part of Luthen being reflected where it's kind of like that he's afraid, he's hiding, he's kind of slipping maybe, but maybe not. And then Luthen talking to Saw is like, Luthen is this huge moderate. Like, there's just
Comparison.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
I like when
a
he's
really cool point.
I like when he says, no matter what we all think this final outcome is supposed to be, it's all got to be together. It's like a bunch of people playing in a band, and it's like, okay, we got to end together. And Saw is one of those characters that Saw is the guy's like, no, my solo does not end. You don't get it. all of your solos are wrong right now. You need to play along with my thing. And Luthen's just like this poor drummer in the background, like, let's all just be together in time, everybody, please.
Oh,
That's funny.
that's a cute analogy of Luthen. I like that.
I think Luthen's more like a conductor, maybe.
Yeah, and then Kayla's the metronome, just like in
Yeah,
his ear.
like you better stay on
And
task.
his ear's like, no, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're dragging. You're dragging.
What I find funny about what ends up happening, right? So you've got all these like really moody, serious, like intense, flawed people that are contributing to the beginning of the rebellion. You've got like Luthen, who's like this gruff, kind of jaded, but also just like ruthless kind of guy. You've got Saw, who's like a complete radical. You've got like Andor, who's like just a survivor, right? All these like gritty people. And and then you flash forward to Return of the Jedi, and the people that are a big part of the effort that actually defeats are these like teddy bears that are like, you know what I mean? It's like all these people are like, we're gonna beat the Empire, and they all end up probably eventually dying, right? And then like the real heroes are like these like yay, let's
Ewoks,
play some
man.
bongos in the in the
I'm
in
so
the
sad that
forest
Saw never
universe.
got to meet the Ewoks.
And then it's also
Fuck.
like Luke and Han, like two wisecracking droids, like like a giant anthropomorphic bear, and and then like this like smiley farm boy, and I guess Leia's like the closest to any of these people's personalities in terms of her like realism and like, you know what I mean. It's funny to imagine how different the rebellion changes, just in terms of attitude. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Totally.
Or the different angle that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The moderate part of the not the not the moderate, but like the main party of the rebels are the part that gets televised in the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was also this sort of theme, or I wanted to point out like sort of slightly a parallel, I guess, between the prisoners with their sign language and Bix with the, I don't know, Morse code type thing that was happening.
Confirmed green glass door last name, by the way.
Colleen. Yep, Colleen. Yeah, there's lots of like secret communication happening or attempted communication. And it was sad when they closed that line.
Yeah.
We got some like somber music as well. And it spanned a couple scenes. It was like he was like, I'm shutting it down. And it was like so yeah. Sad.
Yeah, for sure.
It is sad.
It is sad.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. Did we actually get to hear or like see them receive Bix's communication?
No, but
did we see the
Clea
receiving
is like
end?
listening, and when Luthen walks in, Clea's like, it's the shop owner on Ferrix. They're trying to reach Cassian. Like his mother is ill, so it's clear that like she's listening into their, yeah. And I think Bix is transmitting a message, sort of hoping someone will hear it, but I don't think she knows like Clea or anything like that.
Yeah, I like that we have like confirmed Star Wars Morse code in this show.
Yeah. Does anyone know if there's like a canon name or other instance of this kind of? No, there are other instances of the tapping. Wait, maybe. I feel like doesn't Rogue One have
There
something?
are.
Wait.
And there's click codes for like there was a robot that communicates with
Oh, I guess if we consider droids,
Like,
that's
ticketing.
But like I like specifically like wire transfer,
Right,
like
that was a very-
pulse communication, or I guess it's not a wire, but it's like satellite transfer. I guess maybe that might happen in Rogue One. How do they send the message out for Last Jedi? I don't remember. That might be how they send that out too, right?
Oh, that's a good question.
From crate, right? And they're
Yeah,
like, no one's
yeah.
responding.
well, they
right?
had all those computers in the garage. Not the garage, but you know.
It basically is.
Yeah, it's basically like how Apple started. Yeah, I guess I'm not exactly sure, but those things. It reminds me of the conversation we were having for the first 3 episodes when I think we were talking about like satellite. No, we were talking about radio and Cold War messages being sent over like frequencies and everything like that. Yeah, I thought that was just such a nice detail. And that it was so like laborious to send messages, and that it had to be like in code. She wasn't like sending a text or like posting something. She knows this code, which kind of makes me wonder like how and why does she know this type of communication? We still don't know very much about Bix.
Right.
No. And what's wild is that you don't really know when you're doing something like that. You really don't know if anyone's listening.
Yeah.
So you have to keep, like, think about that with, like, if this was, Morse code comparison. I don't know that someone's listening. So I have to keep sending the same message over and over and over and over and over again until somebody responds to me. And someone could be listening 2 seconds after I give up.
Yeah.
So she has to stay there, and just that's probably how Empire ended up taking down the shop in a later scene, right?
Yeah.
I captured. Sorry if we've already mentioned this. I've been in and out.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with my internet today or anything. But we got to hear the reprisal of the wrench. The wrench
clanging.
hitting the metal, the clanging, the
Yep.
great clanging. The
That was at 4150. Yes.
The 11:16 clanging.
Yeah.
11 weird 16. Yeah, we got to hear so that's like again sound is communication.
Dun dun dun. Taka taka ta. 1 2 3 4. Taka 2 3. Taka ta. 1 2 3. Taka taka ta. 1 2 3. Taka taka ta. 1
Yep.
2 3 4. Taka taka taka. Pretty wild.
So that was interesting.
Was it the same?
we
It
got to
was the
see that.
same rhythm as the first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same. They took that.
Again, we never got to see anybody making that specific rhythm.
No, they just it's like it's like, hey everybody, the police are here. Ting 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 ting. Let's listen.
Yeah.
I
warn
would have liked
everybody
that.
kind
I
of
would have
thing.
liked if they would have actually shown us on screen somebody playing that rhythm.
Yeah. Although I think the point is that it can be heard from very far away.
Yeah. But like in the first episode, we never get to see anybody making that rhythm. So
True.
to me, I'm like
True.
when
We only hear.
first see-
Yeah. We only see the.
we
main
see them
person.
going. Well, we see them, but they're not tapping the rhythm that becomes the score.
Yeah. I see.
So, which is why
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like I guess that is diet like the actual diegetic music being made, but we never get to see it happen. So it's like
So maybe that part's not.
score.
Yeah. Maybe that part's score. More of that blurred line.
Right. But I think it's because the rhythm is so weird that they couldn't get somebody to, and they hadn't decided on the rhythm when they shot it, right? Like that's basically what it boils down to. Is like they hadn't decided this is the rhythm we're going to use.
This is why I wish that like that interview. I wish that they had been like. Everyone should watch it. Like it's very cool. I mentioned it at the beginning of this stream, but several podcasters were invited to interview Nicholas Bertel, I think yesterday, and but they each could only ask one question and not ask follow-up questions. So it's like each person gets to ask their question, Nicholas Bertel answers, and then the next person gets to ask their question, Nicholas Bertel answers. And so in that, like, he actually gave some hints into some of this, but without follow-up questions, it's hard to know for sure what parts he was talking about. Because I think he was saying that, like, the ferrics, like the rhythms, he was saying that the rhythms mean specific things, like that there are specific rhythms for specific occurrences. And I think he said that, like, they did know what that was, and I think that again, I don't know specifically if it was also, what part of the rhythm, and if it was actually a part in 11 but yeah, they were playing it on set and everything, because it's such a big part of ferrics, of those ferric scenes. But again, I don't want to put words in his mouth since there wasn't like very detailed follow-up questioning, and so.
Right.
But yeah,
Interesting. Man, wouldn't it be nice if more Star Wars composers did like lengthy chats about with a
a
bunch
lot of them
nerds?
do.
Yeah, but not like in depth, like only for people that like are really actually music nerd type of chats. They're usually kept to a certain extent where the general public can like
For
take
sure,
it
for
in
sure.
without. You know what I mean? I'd love to see like some really in depth music chat with that are
Yeah.
basically for like weirdos like us.
For sure.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah,
Nice.
sometimes
These
sometimes
synth
they
conversations, wouldn't that be fun? Like he actually breaks down like what he did on his synthesizer
Yeah.
to create these
Oh, that would
sounds
be
like in a
amazing.
way. Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, sometimes they'll show up those composer interviews will show up on sort of like score podcasts and stuff like that.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, like people who are more, yeah, like or things that are for composers. Like that's how I've heard a lot of. Like I've heard, like when John Powell composed solo, he did the rounds on several Star Wars podcasts at the time, and then he also did the rounds on like I don't know, score the podcast, I think, and then like some insider sort of like film composer stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, are there any other sounds or musical things that we didn't go over? And in
Well,
chat,
there's-
did anyone have a favorite moment?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I've got one too.
I don't know if we, yeah, I don't know if we went over them, but I might have because
ahead.
I missed out of it.
Bring it up, man.
Well, first of all, I'm sure I think I caught the tail end of a mention, but Cyril's tie was amazing. I didn't think that you could upgrade the common necktie, but I guess it still has room to evolve.
I was
thought
on the
that good. I
fence
liked-
about his outfit. I was on the fence. I did not like it.
Oh,
I
I
just
loved
was
it.
like, I just kind of did a little bit of a double take.
Double
With
take?
like,
Yeah.
are we in Star Wars? Double take.
I had
Yeah.
that exact reaction, Xanthe. Yeah.
And then I was like,
Yeah.
are there any
mean-
are there any zippers? Are there any? No, there's no zippers.
I was gonna say at least
Okay,
it's not a
good.
zipper though.
Yeah.
At least it's not a zipper or
Or a
a
button.
straight up
Yeah.
soccer hoodie. I liked
Yeah.
I liked when he was basically realizing that the Empire is snubbing him as well. I think I caught the end of James talking about that when I was zooming in and out, kind of a thing at how like yet this would be the moment where they would team up, like you said, like you said, this would be the moment. But then even he gets it. But they had that like kind of growing like synth gritty drone underneath to kind of show him like I don't know. I'm waiting for the moment for him to snap. I want to see what happens when he like truly goes like rogue. I
Here's
feel
the
like
thing.
that's gonna
Cyril seems
happen,
more
you know?
likely to snap. I don't know if he's gonna go rogue, like help the rebels, but I feel like
No,
Dedra-
but I mean
yeah,
like
yeah.
rogue is in like by himself. He's
right,
gonna
like
go
become
out-
a
he,
private, like yeah,
yeah, he's gonna do
citizens
his own.
police.
But it
yeah,
and it was cool that because there was that moment, and then later I can't remember if it was earlier or later in the episode. You have the moment when Cassian is standing in the line where we see the sign language happening and things like that. And there's this like moment where the score just kind of gets incredibly dense and dissonant, and he's
yes,
just, that
Horror
realization of
music
he
at
too is
2320.
about to snap. You know, like oh my goodness, that kind of a thing. But the one I wanted to actually bring up was. The music for what's the facility called? Narek, not Nakira?
Narkina 5.
Narkina 5. You have that. It's got its own like theme to it, right?
I think it does.
this-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when it first appears, you get this like. Kind of a thing, but then later on when it says like 30 shifts later, I like how they said 30 shifts, not 30 days later, but 30 shifts later. Who knows what that means, kind of a thing.
Right.
You get this like this kind of little arpeggio thing, and you get the as it
Yeah.
goes and goes and goes and
Speaking
goes,
of
like
what
this
Christina brought up at the beginning of the stream, the ostinato.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The ostinato. Yeah,
ostinato.
that's why
Yeah.
I was even. I think that ostinato is like a really important theme for the factory,
Yeah.
and it also paces how nervous we're supposed to be. For the the first couple times that we're in the factory, it's like. But then there's a scene about 5 minutes later, maybe like kind of 18 to 20 minutes in, where it's like, I mean, it like really speeds up noticeably. And so it makes
Yeah.
so it really affects the pacing of how we affect the show. And there was a really strong visual representation of that in the factory. Like when I think of the factory, the main thing I think of is like white spaces with black lines, repeated black
Mm.
lines at
Mm.
Yeah.
perfectly equal intervals. So there's a lot of shots where, like when we get to see the bunks that the prisoners sleep in, we really see just like line, 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 line,
Yep.
line,
Mm-hmm.
line, which is very
Hmm.
similar to bop, 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 bop,
Totally.
bop. And we
Yeah.
see the
Yeah.
grid of the floor just like psh, 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 psh.
It's a
Yeah,
visual
I
ostinato.
think
Yeah.
it's a visual
Everything is so
ostinato.
sequenced. Everything is so like
Mm.
in a pattern, in an order. You do not
Hmm.
stray
Yeah,
from that order, and that falls into like their mentality. We have a
yeah.
routine. We have to do this every single day, and if we don't, we're punished. We have to
I
do this.
I thought that scene where he's like, it was interesting just to see Andor kind of like freaking out a bit, and like when
Yeah.
he's realizing this is his situation, and it just like zooms out, and he's like looking down that
Do you
thing
mean
and
when he's in
seeing
the
all
transport?
the different. No, when he's in the line, it's like one of the only parts that's in slow motion
Oh,
in this. Remember that
Yeah.
scene where he's in the line? This is right before he sees those two people doing the sign
Yeah, yeah,
language.
yeah. And then we see the whole.
But he
totally.
like looks down
It's
and he just sees every level of the place, and he realizes how much of a tiny piece in this huge ginormous prison that he is, and I think he's having a moment of just like complete panic and anxiety where he's like, oh my god, look at this crazy situation I'm in right now. um Terrifying, terrifying.
Yeah, Cassian
Yeah.
had a lot of like
Totally.
double take moments in this episode where he kind of just
Thousand
was frozen.
yard stare. That's
Mm.
the word for that look on his face, It's like that. It's just completely like when
Yeah.
he's watching he's watching them put together the thing for the first time
Yeah, exactly.
in the work, right? And he's just like staring, and you could just see that like, oh my goodness, he's just having a moment of sheer, which we don't see very often,
Yeah, not with
you
him.
know.
And that could be
Yeah,
like a character thing or it could be a director
right.
thing.
Mm.
Well, usually when we see somebody put into a Star Wars prison, which we actually see quite a bit in Star Wars, they're usually just like humph, like this, and it's almost like it's almost like in the back their character's brain, they know that they're going to be broken out in the next episode, like, or
Question,
they're like,
what are
let me out
some
of here.
what are
We
some
never get to.
what are the other Star Wars prisons that we see? We see Jin, we see well, we see
We see
Bodhi.
Well, I guess I didn't really mean like an actual prison. I mean like taking into captivity.
Okay,
Right?
like Leia in the cell.
Leia in the cell, Grogu in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
We see and Ezra get put in a cell in in
Captivity.
Rebels. We see Ahsoka being put into a cell in Clone Wars. But none of them are like having a moment of existential dread, right? Like Andor sees, like a moment of just like, oh my god, where am I? And I'll never get out of here. We haven't really
Yeah.
seen this vibe before, because usually it's like there's like, don't worry, they're gonna get broken out like next episode or something like that, right? Or very soon, or within this movie,
Totally.
So we don't have this
Even
sense of like helplessness.
totally, and even then, like if you're just gonna have to sit by yourself in a cell and be bored for however long until you're broken out, but if you have to work 12-hour shifts building like Gatling gun looking parts, like I
Yeah.
kind of think those are turbo lasers personally.
I
Like
think
turbo lasers
yeah.
or ion blasters, because I think that each one is meant to do a shot and then rotate, shot, rotate, shot, rotate, shot, rotate, refill the whole thing, shot, rotate, shot. That's what I think the machines do.
Totally.
But yeah, that's it's much worse to have to do
Right.
that. That's
Yep.
significantly more horrific than being bored in a cell.
Well,
For
counterpoint, I feel like being bored in a cell is probably psychologically well, long periods of solitary confinement I think are
yes.
probably worse than quote unquote having a purpose and a routine and a thing to do. But I think because Cassian was like new when we saw that shot, like he kind of, it's like a reckoning of like this whole machine that he's like part of. I think being in solitary confinement for like 100 days would be harder than 100 days of working on a schedule, even though that sucks, but just at least having some sense of a schedule. Not saying that it's good in any sense, but I think his like reckoning or his like double take, his like whatever you said, James, 1,000-yard stare,
Yeah.
was very much like he knows quite a bit about like the Empire already. Like we don't hear him talk about it that much, but like I think he probably has more of an idea than everyone else, or than a lot of other prisoners, of like what he is involved in right now.
For sure. Well, how about that food tube?
That is
Yes,
what
that's what I was
that was
just thinking
chilling.
of.
The 30 shifts later, and
Yeah.
then seeing him like just like being so used to
Right.
the tube. That was like first like really great scene, but
How
like
about
that
they
scene's
they
hard for me
pump
to watch.
flavor in?
Yeah,
They pump flavor in if you
if you win.
if you win,
If
you
you
get to
win.
taste something. I mean, the level of evil within this particular prison complex, I don't think we've seen deep, dark evil like to this extent. In some ways, this is adult evil right now. You know,
Totally.
like
This
this,
the prison
this
labor.
Is pretty,
Yeah,
this isn't
Yeah.
like
front for legal
we're
slave labor.
holding little Leia down in cuffs down in the and we're gonna interrogate her with the Force. This is like we're gonna feed you flavor if you know what I mean, if you're the best level, and we're gonna keep
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
forever. So
Like,
And I love that someone gets punished every single day. There's no way to evade the punishment. It's not like if everybody gets above this, then nobody gets punished. It's just whoever's at the bottom gets that.
Yeah.
That's pretty. That's pretty rough.
it's awful, and it's yeah.
And there's a lot of
Darth
thought
Chaco
that goes
made
into it.
Chaco made a great point, which is, I mean, these types of scenarios are not entirely far off from what's happening right now.
Oh,
In real prison
absolutely.
systems.
Totally.
oh yeah.
This is the
So,
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's right in our faces.
I like how
Yeah.
the Imperial officer says are minimally invasive discipline techniques.
Yeah.
It's like this, like what we're doing is perfectly legal. We're not hurting you, are we? You know, you're criminals. It's so weird. It's so weird.
It,
And
it
the,
is
the
minimally
sound
invasive in a way.
This
uh-huh.
reminds me
and
of
the
our
sound that the floor made,
Mm.
not just the one where he got potentially sliced, but the first time. They
Yeah, when they're like
they shock
they
him.
made those
it's
shapes
like,
with their bodies.
It's like grinding metal and like this high pitch, and that was terrifying. I couldn't tell if it was auditory, like an auditory torture, or like a physical torture at the same time, kind of a thing.
yeah. I didn't want to, I don't mean to make light of something so horrible, but I did really appreciate the acting chops of that group of people with that tableau that they
Oh,
all
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Because there's no special effects there. They're just like, all right, everyone act like you're being like frozen. You know what I mean? Like that's all just acting. Like it's like
Oh right,
That's right.
yeah.
yeah. So you know, I mean, on the set, it's basically all of them going like this. "Wah!" You know, like
I'm sure
Yeah.
that's already a TikTok
What-
challenge.
well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Andor.
This reminds me of the conversation we were having a few weeks ago, which was like we were talking about the rebels on Aldani and basically what they had to, you know, the blatant like killing of people that happened at the garrison and them getting their hands dirty. And we were talking about like getting one's hands dirty and so much of what goes on in the Empire isn't physically themselves getting their hands dirty, but the systems are there to do the same, if not worse. So like they don't have to actually be like slicing people's heads off or anything like that. They just all they have, you know, but they're still torturing and like killing people and, you know, abusing them like just with their methods with you know the systems that they have in place. And so it's like, which one is worse? Well,
Absolutely.
you know, they're both bad, but one of them is easier to see and one of them is just harder to see. The Imperial side, the way that the Empire exacts its tendrils, the way that the Empire extends its tendrils is so much more insidious that way, because it doesn't just look like, oh, people are coming at us with weapons, so we'll fight back. It's just,
Right.
it's so much more convoluted, and yeah.
Just
Yeah, the
to
fact that
see.
they have a
Go ahead,
um,
Chrissy. Sorry.
I was gonna say, like, the way that they really did build a prison entirely. Did they say it's out of tungsten alloy?
Yeah.
Um,
Tungstoid.
because
Tungstoid
tungstoid.
steel.
Uh, like the fact that they have a prison completely made of that. Just it. You almost, so if those prisoners get out and try to tell anyone that that is what happened to them, it would be kind of hard to believe that. That's it's kind of like, oh, you made up. I think a lot of people would think that they made up that story, and not only that, but they program fear into the act of stepping forward. Like every time Cassian's foot touched the ground in the morning, I had kind of a, even if the floor wasn't shocked, it immediately kind of made me afraid. And I can't imagine what it would be like. I mean, I got that just from the 2 times that I got to see Zap walk on the floor. I can't imagine what it's like living that, and I mean, it must be absolutely ingrained to sort of fear the ground you walk on, sort of,
Yeah, they would all
maybe, or to
hesitate before
recognize.
putting their foot in the morning.
Yeah, and that is kind of, and you know that you can only walk safely if the Empire is allowing you to.
Yeah.
That's pretty deep and insidious and terrible.
It's terrible. I just try not to make like or light of it. It's so creative and like it's I don't know. I'm just like I'm trying to say this in the least like psychotic way possible, but I'm so glad that these interesting depictions are in a Star Wars show, because you know, like, you can get stale on like the types of evil you invent for, again, not to say that these types of things aren't happening on planet Earth, but I just it's just like, what a creative idea for an evil space prison that they created for this show. How cool is that? Again, I know I sound like a psycho by saying that, considering what I'm talking about, but I just mean, like, this is like such a creative, refreshing thing to see in Star Wars. Like some crazy torture prison with electric floors throughout the whole thing. That's nuts. That's in Star Wars, you know. So yeah.
A few little details. One of them, Daughters of Ferrix. Pretty funny. Reminds me
Yeah,
of
right.
Daughters of the Revolution, which is, you know, a thing that we have, a thing that exists here. And she was the past president. So, interesting. Also, who do we think is Axis? Is that Luthen or someone
Yeah,
I
else?
thought
yeah,
Access is Luthen.
Okay,
I think
so
it's
it's definitely
100%
Luthen.
is Luthen.
okay. And Anto Krieger.
Say again.
Yeah,
what?
who's
Anto
Krieger?
Krieger. That was at the very end of the episode when
I didn't look him up.
Luthen wanted Saw to meet with Anto Krieger,
Right.
and
Yeah.
Saw was like, no.
I think
No
it's
deal.
just someone we haven't met yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Green glass door. Now it makes me wonder if, does anyone, I guess I could look him up now, but I've never heard of him. So
No,
Okay.
I've never heard of Anto Krieger.
yeah. And any other names, any other things that I'm not sure of? I want to know more about the Dedra's report detailing the like fear that various sectors have for reporting things. I found that to be a very interesting detail. That makes it more possible to understand how someone like the Empire could make mistakes and stuff like that. It's the competition, slowing them down, not working together, try to just steal each other's info and do their own thing. And it's being too ashamed or worried about repercussions to admit when there's a problem in your sector. It's stuff like that, which I think is really important to show, because otherwise it can seem like, well, how did they lose in the end? How?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for such a
you're right.
organization based on order and procedure. They're pretty lax
Yeah.
in maintaining that.
Yeah. Anyone else have final thoughts about Andor episode 8? Oh, Cyril's consoles at the beginning. Oh,
Oh.
such good sounds.
Oh.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
all
that.
the yeah.
Is
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
340?
Totally.
Yeah.
And all the
Yeah, their
pads,
sound.
I don't know why. They sound so analog to me. They sound
the
like
pads?
something's like the data pads, and then when
Mhm.
they're like scrolling through a thing, or even when like in that ISB meeting with the I don't know, was he a general? Was he just like the head guy who was like gonna approve? As he's just kind of like ignoring, just all he cares about is like how much money they're about to spend on this like thing. Like you can hear the pad as he's like shifting through like the list, his Miro's
Interesting.
wish list. I don't know. Everything's just so tactile.
Okay.
And,
It
he,
was.
and even like the Morse code receiver that Luthen is saying, that they have that, but then there's like steps to like shutting
Yeah.
it down, and
We
I don't
love a
know.
good
I want
master
that as a-
switch.
Yep. I want that as a prop.
Totally. I also really liked at the very beginning, I think the opening scene, or one of the opening scenes, when Cassian is put into the transport to be taken to the prison, and the handcuffs kind of go, like everybody's hands get stuck to the sides of their chairs, and it was a very nice, like slurpy sound effect there for the
Yeah.
handcuffs.
And those were like the regular, like, we've seen these handcuffs before. I've never seen them do that. Like, they look like the standard, like, imperial cuffs that we've seen in so many things, but to, like, have them, like, magnetically or electronically, like, bind them to the chair is kind of an
That was
interesting...
terrifying. That reminds me of a ride that
retake
was
on
at
those.
Six Flags. There was a ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain that like it goes so fast
Oh.
around that you stick. You can't move. Like you're stuck to
Yeah.
like. Yeah, they strap you in just in
Yeah,
case.
you grab.
But there's no way you're
Yeah.
going to move anyway, because you're just stuck to. It's going too fast.
Yeah, you're gravitationally plastered to the wall.
Yes.
So, what are the predictions that we might have for how he's going to get the heck out of this prison? Do you think Luthen is interested in getting him out of there for the sake of, because he keeps alluding to how they want to like find him so they can basically take him out because he's got information on Luthen? Do you think that Luthen has an interest in helping him get out?
I don't know.
I think he would if he knew that Keith Girgo was Cassian Andor.
Yeah, Keith Gear.
But nobody.
Oh, right, because he doesn't
no
know.
cargo.
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
not even
nobody
listed there.
knows.
I like how all these people are looking for Cassian, and he has no clue that anyone is looking
That's
for
true.
him, and at the same time is like nowhere near where
Right.
anyone is looking for him at the moment.
And no one witnessed him that really go to this prison. He like was completely on his own.
Yeah, the only person that knows is missing is the girl he was sleeping with. He's like, we need
Right.
more prezos or prezos or
Pizos.
whatever. Yeah, Pizos. Like,
Yeah.
that's the only person that knows is missing right now, and she's probably like,
Right.
what a jerk, he left me. And that's it. That's the last I'll hear of him.
I wonder how they might find out that he's there unless he like tells somebody who he is or something like that.
Right. I mean, it is surprising that he is, considering they have they know what his face looks like, right? They have that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a little bit surprising that, I guess, not necessarily surprising, but I feel like it's just a matter of time before their facial recognition catches up to him. I feel like they have the technology to identify him, but maybe they're not applying the technology in this wide, in a way that can comb through him quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
Interestingly, I agree, and I think one of the reasons could be that there's so many people being arrested that they're just behind.
Yeah,
It's just taking way
exactly.
longer to cross-check all the face recognition because
Exactly, and I
You know?
think the show makes it easier to understand, to believe that, like, because I have no doubt that they
Yeah.
have the technology to do all this, but they are kind of, not inept, but like, they're not all on top of their shit. They're not, even if they have the tools to do stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's just I think there's a level of what's the word? Yeah, it makes it more realistic that the about a galactic wide, galaxy wide empire, right? Like, that's kind of an outlandish idea in the real scope of how big a galaxy is, and they're kind of showing you it is outlandish, and that's why they're not very successful at it. Like they're not ultimately successful at it, because it's actually a lot to to control an entire galaxy. There's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, it's not so easy. Paperwork. Yeah.
I do appreciate, and we didn't really, I meant to mention this. I do appreciate that the reason why Andor ultimately gets imprisoned and put in this situation has nothing to do with his actions as a rebel, because I think it highlights the evil of the Empire. Because he could have gotten thrown in prison after that thing on Aldhani, and that could have been the way that they put that character into this situation. But that would almost that almost seems like a reasonable reaction. But he's literally just running. He's just running or walking. No, he's just walking on the beach, right? He's just walking on the beach, and somebody else is running, and that causes them to be like, "You're in jail too."
When shows look too close to reality.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Police brutality,
Does.
the prison industrial
Yeah,
complex, everything.
They don't even care. They just want, and then just doubling everyone's sentence or whatever, making it all go up too. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't know how he's gonna break out. I don't think I have any theories. In fact, I will say that like, I don't see how a prison breakout can be interesting. That doesn't sound like very interesting to me, and so I'm not very interested in how that happens. But because it's this show, and I have kind of trust this show at this point, I trust that it'll somehow make me interested.
Well, I imagine you might have said the same thing about like a heist, right?
Totally.
Gold heist.
Yep. Totally. Totally.
So there
Yeah.
you go.
It's I think it's gonna have something to do with these prisoners. Like I think Christina was talking about earlier, the fact that they're so coordinated because they have to be,
Right.
kind of a thing. That's gonna play into it because at this point, if say they even like somehow found out that Cassian was in this prison, like Luthen, and they'd have to get Xanthe and Vel to go undercover. You know what I mean? Like the remaining
Right.
pieces of that old team, they'd have to, we'd have to wait like 3 more episodes. we can't have him in this prison for that long. There's only 4 episodes left in the
I don't know
season,
what
so.
this implies, but I guess it's worth mentioning that those two that we're communicating are on different levels as opposed to as opposed to being on the same level, and they're like planning something. So I don't know what that exactly implies in terms of how that might go down, but I think the fact that they are on different levels within a multi-level competition system or whatever probably is meaningful. In the way that they're going to coordinate their plan has something to do with how one level interacts with another level. So that's fucking interesting. Excuse me.
Well, do you think that the prison breakout would be for everyone, or just like a few people breaking out, like Shawshank Redemption style?
Well, I just think that the something in way one, I think they just might cause some type of disruption or chaos. And also, we also had like that little insight between the Imperial guards that are like, there was something happening on this level, so I had to be up here. Sorry, it took me a while to get up here, right? So I think these are all little things that are implying that the way that this place operates logistically, they're going to take advantage of those weaknesses somehow.
Watch there not be a prison breakout at all. It's just
Well,
Yeah.
Cassian
how
gets bailed out. It's completely.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he just like he completes the sentence. By the way, I had to do a double take and be like, oh, are Arabesh like numbers look that much like 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 Arabic numbers, right?
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, interesting. And I like looked it up. So I like how they're like, oh, we can actually show text on the screen in universe when it's numbers, because basically you have to translate everything else in Star Wars, but the
Yeah.
numbers you can like show to the audience and they know what you're looking at, which was useful for their storytelling,
Yeah, that's fun.
So because that never happens in Star Wars.
Another potential Chekhov's blank is the readers that like automatically show how many days you have, the screen that shows how many days you have left. So perhaps Andor will wake up one day and see that he has 1 day left or something, and will be
Somebody
like,
hacked into the.
well, no, like either they want him out. Either they're taking him out to do something different to him, or like
Oh,
they
I got
realize
you.
who he
Yeah.
is, and so they're like it could be bad news for him that his
Yeah.
sentence, if his sentence is up or something.
Yeah,
Not even
that's
sentence,
interesting.
just how many days are on that thing.
It's hard for me to imagine how this whole like sign language thing plays into this with that also being the case, but the show has been surprising me every week, so we'll see. Yeah.
Indeed. Yay. Well,
It's awesome. Show's
Next
so
week?
awesome.
it is.
Show is so awesome, guys. Like
So good.
it blows my mind every week that this show exists. Like what the heck is going on? It's so good. Sorry. I just had
I'm
to say
very pleased.
that. It's just
Yeah.
They can't raise the bar like this because then I fear that Ahsoka will be the next Boba Fett.
Oh.
In comparison. I hope not.
It could
Do you
happen.
think they're gonna hide?
that
they're gonna
is
hide these
so
behind a size
funny,
noodles
Darth.
poster?
Yes.
Oh my
That's
god. I
incredible.
hope so, and it makes it even better that humans, that they're all humans. And they have a size noodles poster. Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes, that would
Love
be
it.
fantastic.
I'm trying to think of like what some of the other Shawshank Star Wars versions might be. Like
The size noodles poster. It's gotta, yeah. Gosh.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's a good good note to end on. Next week, same time, everyone?
I think so.
Saturday? Talk episode
yeah.
9? 9, 10.
Yeah.
Wow. It's going to be the
4 more.
4th to last episode.
And hopefully, not hopefully, but maybe all of us will have seen Tales of the Jedi by then, maybe.
Maybe.
And
Sounds like James wants to talk
Perhaps.
about it.
I
The
do.
stream
I
will be
wanna
a-
talk-
the stream will be
I
about
really
Andor,
wanna
though,
talk
everyone.
about it, and yeah, of course. But I do want to just talk about it in reference to this show too. I'd love to just talk about. Yeah, that's all I'll say.
I'm gonna binge it all. Don't worry. I noticed how short the episodes were, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna want to do this all in one.
I need
I'm
to, already like 3 episodes in from this morning, and it's like blowing by. So
Nice. I did number one. I watched number 1.
Okay. I haven't started.
all right, and everybody, fill out your public service loan forgiveness program if you qualify. Just throwing
And
out
vote.
a little PSA
And vote.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Jeannie. Thanks for coming.
thanks.
And yeah, everyone vote if you have an election happening for you. Yeah. Anyway, okay. I guess we should do our
Woo.
outro music.